Welcome to the Storyfield. This is a podcast created and sponsored by the Allen Firm. This is Josh Allen, and I'm joined by Micah Petrie. I think you'll agree that life is complex, business is hard, and living a life of faith can feel complicated. We know it's discouraging when movement in your life or business or faith has stopped. Well, you're in the right place to hear some great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you to move forward in life. So thank you for joining us today. We know you're going to be encouraged. Welcome to the Storyfield podcast. Today is going to be really cool. If you live in or around Weatherford or Parker County, then I guarantee you're going to know today's guest, Adam Feriend. Adam, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Josh. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. Thanks for asking me.
You bet. So Adam is one of the owners of JRJ Construction, and we'll get into this, but it's a large commercial general contractor. And JRJ Technologies, and that's a full service technology firm. So we'll get in a little more. I mean, he's an incredible person, and I think he's involved in a little bit of everything. But in preparing for this interview, I learned a lot I've never known. So instead of me like giving more bio, I think we're going to test some of our legal skills and pretend like you may be on the stand in front of us, and we're going to jump in and just see where this goes. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. Welcome to the show. Thanks for making time, Adam.
My pleasure.
So before we kind of get into like we like to do more of the childhood where you grow up, just tell us just a snapshot right now. Like, what are some things you're doing as being involved in the community in Weatherford or Parker County or beyond? Like, what are you involved in right now in the community?
Sure. Well, a big one, obviously, that takes a lot of time, but it's an honor and privilege. Is I'm currently one of the 7 elected school board trustees for Weatherford ISD. And with all that's going on in our world and in the community, it's one that has needed a lot of attention and a lot of things where we're battling for this community and our students to make sure that we hold to those good conservative and fiscal values that we know Weatherford and really all of Parker County embodies. But that's a big one. I'm actually on the executive board for Economic Development Council of Parker County. We, a lot of people have, that we can't be a bedroom community forever. So we're looking to really try and grow business and not farming our jobs into Fort Worth and Dallas and other places, but where we can be self-sufficient, also help the tax rate and so forth by having those businesses here. Weatherford Chamber of Commerce. I'm one of the trustees for Northside Baptist Church. And a deacon there. I lead a young married Bible study there at the church and a men's ministry Bible study on Wednesday nights. Part of the board and a trustee for Graffiti Ministries, which is a church plant in Coney Island up in New York. Very involved there. We're in the middle of looking for a new executive director for that. So please be praying for those of you that know that ministry. Please be praying for it.
Yeah, so I just wanted people to know this is what we're dealing with. So I'm glad you made some space because you are involved in everything. And you do it with a smile on your face and gladly. So just in the time I've known you, and on top of that, you have 3 young men you're raising as your own. So that's another, another huge role in your life. So thank you for all you're doing.
It's a privilege. I believe God gives us one life here on this earth, and he calls us to love him and to love others. And if you can do it by using the gifts he's given you to love and serve other people, it's a privilege.
Yeah,
people always tell me,
great.
I mean, you need to slow down, you're going to burn out. I'm like, I'm got heaven for that. I think God's going to be good. He's always given me the strength to be involved in a lot, and I love it. It's what gives me energy.
Yeah, that's great. Well, where'd you grow up? Childhood?
I was born I was born in Plainview, up in the Panhandle. My dad was at a little church in Olton there. My dad's a minister of music, and my mom actually was a voice teacher. She taught at Wayland up there. And then we moved to San Antonio. My dad was called to a church in San Antonio where my sister was born. And then from there here to Weatherford. He was actually a minister of music at Northside Baptist Church from 1980 to 85. That's where I first was introduced to my now wife. Our families became really good friends, and she and I were childhood friends at that time. And then he was called to First Baptist McKinney, and we were in McKinney for about 5 years, and then to University Baptist Church in Clear Lake, Texas, where Johnson Space Center is down in Houston, and that's where I went to high school. And then so yeah, I'm been a little bit everywhere in Texas.
So you spent your whole high school was in Clear Lake. You graduated from there.
Mhm.
What was it like jumping around? I say jumping around, but kind of moving from church to church, town to town and town.
It was difficult, especially the one right before my freshman year. Had was a lot of things that God had opened doors. Top show choir as a freshman. I was me freshman class president. My best friend was the high school varsity football coach's son. And my parents walk in and say, "Hey, we're moving from McKinney to Houston," and it was like, oh my
Uh,
gosh. And there was a moment of I guess kind of anger towards them and a little bit of anger towards God at that moment. As you can imagine, being a 14-year-old and you know, uh, having to dive into that was a tough transition, and I had to say, God, I either trust you with this move or I'm going to be miserable and I'm going to make everyone around me miserable.
mm.
But for the most part, it was one of those things that I think really shaped me, moving around that much and making friends easily and going into new endeavors and not being afraid of those new endeavors. I look back on it now. At the time, you don't see it, but it was very um, helpful and just growing moments, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good perspective too. I mean, you don't. It's hard to see that when you're in the weeds of it, but then looking back, you can say, I mean, that was all you used as part of your story.
Mhm.
Um, so then you graduated from Clear Lake. Where'd you go to college?
I did my undergrad at Rice University there in Houston, so I didn't go too far away from home.
And then what was your degree? Where'd you go from there? Kind of give us a college. What was
Sure.
college like in that experience?
College was a very eye-opening experience. Those of you that don't know Rice University very much, it's known as the Ivy League School of the South. There, it is a lot of smart people. I still don't understand how I got in it. To be honest with you, I think God just wanted me to be there for some reason. But it was an eye opener for this, Southern Baptist minister's kid. It's a very liberal school. And I went was blessed with in performing and singing. Was I did a double major. Rice didn't have any minors, that's only majors, so I did a double major in vocal performance and in finance, and so did my degrees there. It was the best forging of my relationship with God, because I there was a lot of temptation, a lot of temptations. There was a lot of just liberal, very anti. I mean, first class I walked into down there, the professor said, "We're studying humanities. We're going to learn about Kant and Nietzsche and all these people, and God is essentially dead in this class."
Oh, wow.
And that was in 1995. So you can imagine what that looked like. And if you mention him, you will fail this class. So I immediately left that class and went to the registrar's office. We had pass fail classes that we could designate every year. One class per year we could designate as just pass fail, no letter grade. And I said, I need to turn this one into a pass fail only, because I can't go through a class and not talk about God. So it forged my faith. It made my faith very, very real and personal during that time.
Mhm.
And really grew it. It challenged me. A lot of friends, people late nights, really smart people that knew the word, and they challenged me to dig deeper and to make my faith, not just because I went to church, but because I wanted a deep relationship with God. So it was a good one.
All right, I want to back up just real quick because I think we kind of glossed over a little bit. You were in like the Texas All State Choir, which is
Yeah.
like a big deal a couple of times. So yeah, I think we
Yeah.
need to mention that. But my question is like being somewhat of a choir person myself, when I got out of school, there wasn't that many vocal performances uh locally. I mean, I think you could go to North Texas and I think you could go to where you were at, maybe Texas State at the time. Did you do
Baylor
more
was
of, or
probably another one.
Baylor? Did you do more of the operatic
Uh-huh.
type, or was it more just traditional vocal performance?
It was with an opera focus. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I remember when I got out and I was trying to find a school that would let me do contemporary, there was only one, and it was Belmont, and I was like, yeah, can't go to Belmont. That's crazy
Yeah.
out of my price range. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just had a choir nerd moment there, real quick.
No,
We can go
sure.
back to the important stuff, but
Perfect. So actually wanted to ask that too. Like when you were, I mean, your mother taught voice,
Mhm.
your father was, in music and ministry. Um, did that just come from that? Was your vision to do opera stuff? I mean, kind of coming through high school, coming through college?
No, I fell in love with it. My parents never pushed it on me. It's one of the things I'm very, very thankful. They never forced any of it on me. They just let my sister and I grow to love it. And obviously, if you're around it all the time, you grow to love it. And they're both very talented musicians, so obviously the genes were there. Um, and I just began to start having success and through competitions and things like that. And then school started offering me, I was able to go on a full scholarship to Rice and at the Shepherd School of Music there. And so it just forged, and then more competitions, and it just kind of built just the love for it. And I loved being on the stage, anything high school musicals and things like that. I loved being on the stage. It was a rush. I call it it's a performer's high, much like a runner's high, man, when you're just out there, and there's nothing like it with a 60-piece orchestra and the whole place is just focusing on you. And I mean, and you're singing and that swath of sound comes over, and I mean, it is amazing. But yeah, when I was thinking of going to New York, moving after I finished graduate school, and had gotten an agent, and went up there and sat down with a vocal coach in New York. And Mindy and I had been married, for a year and a half or so. And I sat down with him, and my dad always taught me that you don't get anywhere without some sort of sacrifice. There has to be a sacrifice in anything, right? If anything that's worth anything requires a sacrifice. And so I sat down with that coach. He said, I really want you to meet with a young guy who just signed on with his first big role with the Met, and let's go have lunch. And so I went and sat down with him, and I said, first question out of my mouth, I said, look, let's cut to the chase. I obviously, would love to be where you are, and that's some goals and dreams, but what's been the most difficult thing you've had to sacrifice to get to where you are today? And he said, well, I've missed my kids' last 3 birthdays, or I've not been able to be there. And when he told me that, and we didn't have any kids at the time, but I called Mindy and I said, I'm done. If I have to do that in order to be there, then this is not for me.
What an incredible decision. I mean, to make at that time. And what an unbelievable question. I was thinking like, man, I want to go back some years and just kind of be asking myself, younger self, that question throughout the time. I mean, what do you have to sacrifice to get to this point? I mean, that clears the air right there. I mean, you'll know. Was that a dream crusher for you though?
It was tough. I mean, it was one of those things. And my wife, even, I think it was as hard for her as it was for me. Yeah, I came home and mourned that loss. I mean, that was something that I had invested, well, really my whole life, but a good 6 years of my life in school, and lots of work and lots of coaching and staring at a mirror, looking at myself while I sang, and all that fun stuff. Um, it was one of those things. It's like, okay, God, this is what I thought, but I know that you've got other things that are more important from my priorities. And being a father and a husband that's available and present is a huge one. And so I know that if this dream is done, you can give me other ones. You can create new dreams. And so we just began to dream differently. I went through a season of performing is a very, it's an egotistical profession. If you just the honest opinion, it's I mean, it's about you, and the goal of it is to go promote you. And God needed to teach me some humility. And the next few years of my life were those moments where he brought humility into my life and taught me about a lot of things.
Yeah, and let's talk about that too, because when I was looking up some stuff on you, it seemed like that will do it. So tell us next. I mean, did you go get your master's degree after New York after that, or was that all before and then you got with the coach and then you made that decision?
Yeah, it was towards the tail end of my graduate time there, because I was having to make some decisions whether I was going to go to a doctoral program and go the teaching route, being a professor, a vocal coach, voice teacher at a university, or if I was going to stay purely performing, whether I was going to go into some artist certification programs at, San Francisco Opera, the Met, New York City Opera, things like that, and get into an apprentice type artist certificate program. So it was towards the end of my graduate degree. So that shut off, and I was like, okay, I've not done anything but teaching and perform for the last 6 years. And so it was also around 2001, 2002, when there wasn't really, the economy was really driving and kicking, so there wasn't a whole lot of jobs for somebody with not a whole lot of experience and just a degree. And so I dove in, start doing door-to-door sales, literally residential door-to-door sales, and I didn't make anything unless I sold something that day. And it was a very humbling experience. Look back on it now and what it taught me as far as perseverance and faith in God for provision, to being able to walk into a room or a situation and not have any problem. You knock on someone's door and they don't want you there, you better be able to make a friend really quickly, And
well, yeah, no. What were you selling?
We sold probably those promotional cards. We were a promotional advertising company, and you've probably seen those either golf course cards or Texas Rangers cards, where you purchase a card for $40 or $50, and you get a couple of free games and then a bunch of buy one get ones. And so we would meet, develop the relationship with the client, develop the card, and then we would go sell them door to door.
Well, did you get good? And how long did you do that? How successful were you?
I got really good at it. And so much so that they wanted me to go open up an office in Houston. And so I went with another guy, and we began to open a market down there to get the Astros in and some of the other big golf courses down there in Houston. And they told me it was going to be short-lived. And I woke up 9-10 months later, and the whole reason I didn't want to perform was because I was going to be away from my family and my wife. And I woke up one Saturday morning in the apartment down there going, what am I doing?
9 months later.
Why am I here? Yeah. And so I went in and told him, I said, either at the time we were looking to start a business with some friends of ours up in Norman, Oklahoma, a restaurant business. And I said, either you give me the Oklahoma market or I'm done, or the Oklahoma City market. And they said, no, you're doing too good down here. We want you to stay here. And I said, so I quit.
Wow. What another big decision.
Yeah.
Did you have a family by then? Were the
Not
boys?
yet, but as soon as we got to Norman, Mindy found out she was pregnant. So it was that was an interesting journey.
So you moved to Norman, and did you pursue the restaurant business? I mean,
we did. We started that restaurant with some friends of ours, and it was a little wasn't a what you would call a full-blown restaurant. It was a little place called Fancy That. It was a kind of a little boutique restaurant with a chalkboard menu for lunch and really fun breakfast items in the morning. We started doing caterings. That's why we knew we wanted to go there, because Mindy started helping her do caterings. Norman with OU, they had a limited number of options for caterers in Norman. And with all the weddings and people at the university there, we're like, hey, we'll get into this. as quick as we can. And they had a real fixed menu, OU did. And so we found a little niche, and we could custom do anything people wanted. And so that grew and that grew. And then people began to ask, well, do y'all have a location? And then the rest was kind of history. So
That's great. I mean, that's how food trucks, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of now that's like sort of a food truck story that gets really good. So how long did that go on before
we
the
had
change? Something
Yeah, we
happened.
had we were up there almost two full years. Our business partners decided to adopt a little boy from Guatemala, and they found out he had a real rare blood disorder, West called Aldrich syndrome. And they said, do you still want to adopt him? And they said, yes, we do, even though he has it. And they didn't give him a whole lot, real long life. So they had to bring him to St. Jude's. And as soon as they adopted him, then they found out his brother and sister were also available. So they went ahead and adopted them as well, like at one time. And so they were being pulled out of the business to go up to St. Jude's and be there for a lengthy amount of time as he was fighting for his life. And they said, do y'all want to buy us out? And we said, not really, because we had a little one, and I mean, it was going well. So God blessed, and the recognition of the business went so well, we were able to sell it for quite a bit more than what we had put into, which is very unusual for a little mom and pop restaurant. And it actually just closed down. That was in 2000, let's see, 2004. And so it went on for another 17 years. They expanded in new locations. So that's a real fun story. Just, it's very unusual for a small little place like that to continue on unless it's a chain. And so we had created I guess, a decent business model for it to be successful up there.
I mean, and you learned a lot of the operation skills, and you created the right leadership, and obviously y'all done something right to continue beyond y'all, which is fantastic. Well, what ended up leading? So after y'all sold it, did you move back to Weatherford, and when did you get involved in JRJ?
So while I was there, I wasn't fully involved in the restaurant, mostly my wife. I got a job as a teller. I said, I'm going to go the banking route. I'm going to use my finance degree and go the banking route. So I got a job as a teller with a Republic Bank and Trust there in Norman. And then began to work my way up. I went from teller to a mortgage processor to begin to do some underwriting. Then they offered me a position on the other side of the bank to begin to do small business lending, and then went from small business lending. They sent me to school. So I actually transitioned out of banking and got a job with Weatherford National Bank, which was ultimately First Financial at the time there in Aledo, with Lewis Sneed. For anybody that's listening that might have known Aledo's banker forever, Lewis Sneed, who's now the pastor at Parker County Cowboy Church there in Aledo. So that's where the transition came down there. And then obviously Mindy began doing payroll about halfway through our time up there, payroll for JRJ at the time. Her dad didn't want to do it anymore. And so anyway, I was in banking for about 4 years, or I guess 5 years. And that was the transition back to Weatherford. So.
And then you were in Weatherford or Aledo for that amount of time, or just that was your total time in banking?
I was in 1 year, a little over a year, I guess 2 years in Norman, and then 4 years in Weatherford there at Aledo. So
okay. And then your wife Mindy, her father was the owner at the time of JRJ. Is that right?
Her as an entire family. So Joe
Okay.
R. Jones Construction, or JRJ Construction. Joe Jones was Mindy's grandfather, her mom's dad, and it was Joe and his son and daughter, Randy Jones and Melody Brown, or Melody Jones Brown. They all started together. And David, Mindy's dad, was actually captain of the Weatherford Fire Department for the majority of his time. But they said, look, we need somebody that has the financial side of things that Melody was looking to start to be done. The company started in 1988, and she'd been doing it for a good 25 years. And she just said, I need somebody that can take my place. So they came and asked if I'd, pray about leaving banking and coming over to the company. And Mindy and I did, and we made that decision. And then lo and behold, about 3 years after being there, they all were diagnosed with cancer within about a year of each other.
I mean, I'm blown away by that too. And give us the time. I mean, look, we have to talk about that because I want you to talk about God's faithfulness and walking through that as well.
Mhm.
But first off, as a snapshot of the company at the time, like what type of company were y'all size wise?
Sure.
I mean, you walked into what type of company?
I walked in, I would say in 2008, when I came over, the company was roughly probably around 18 to 20 million or so a year in commercial, construction contracts. That's, gross revenue, contract revenue.
Yeah. And then
About 35 employees at the time. Mhm.
okay. And that was, tell me again the year, Adam.
That was 2008.
Okay. Was that before like kind of the big recession or in the middle of it, or
Right as we were about to go into it, or that the next couple of years was when it really started to, the bubble burst and things began to really, kind of unravel.
so let's talk about that. I mean, that's unbelievable with all the owners, having that diagnosis within a year, right? You come in fresh out of banking and Mindy's been helping, and then right before the recession hits.
Mhm.
I mean, talk about that. Like, what was that experience like?
It was incredibly, I'll be honest. I don't like to use the word fear because fear is not from God, but that was about the most concerned and afraid as I've ever been. We had subcontractors going belly up, left and right, subs that we had paid, that we thought they had paid suppliers, and of course they hadn't. Those of you who don't know the general construction world, you're the last person on the bottom of the totem pole. So if the sub can't pay, then those suppliers come to you. You've got liens. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars that companies started to belly up that we were having to pay twice on. And then Melody was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, was pulled out, stage 3 plus. About 6 months after that, David, Mindy's dad, was diagnosed with a very late stage pancreatic cancer. And then Randy Jones, the president of the company, about 6 months after that, was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia.
And
so
everybody was having to leave at that time, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they were completely sucked out of the company altogether. And so it was one of those moments where there was a lot of prayer, and I would love to take any sort of credit, but there is none to be given on my end. It was our team here, so faithful, and I could get emotional about it, but I'm not going to. But just so faithful and loyal, and we just forged together, and we put our faith in God. And there were some crazy moments, man. Late at night, 2 a.m. God, I don't know how to make this reconcile. It's not reconciling. It just doesn't work. And I know I can't close the module and go to the next month unless this does. And flipping through huge stacks of paper, trying to find a 39 cents that I'm off, and stopping and praying for 30 minutes, and God saying, hey, just give it one more try. Just give it, just trust me one more time. And literally, I kid you not, that particular moment, it will be forever etched in my brain. But pulling that big stack of paper about this thick, pulling it open, and there was the 39-cent error. Just moments like that. Hey, God, we need to pay this vendor, and where's it coming from? And a billing that someone in our team had forgotten to enter that I didn't even know was out there, right? And then it shows up the next day. And just so many incredible faith moments and journeys as a team that was life-changing forever.
yeah, I know. And looking back, and I want people who are listening to hear this, like, because I think it can be easy as somebody kind of maybe on the outside of a business to look in and say like, oh, look at these guys, this huge business, no problems, it's all great, the White Tower, there's the guys up top and all that. But what was the weight of that? I mean, it's crushing, isn't it? Times, I mean,
there is nothing, and anybody that's owned a business, you will understand this statement, that you feel an obligation for the team that you have the pleasure of leading and being a part of. You feel an obligation like nothing else to continue to provide a safe place for them to come, but also for their families. And knowing that there are moments where you're like, God, I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, but I just want to continue to take care of this team. It is a massive weight. It is. There were many sleepless nights, many times. God taught me during that time of those sleepless nights to just, when I would wake up and I would tend to worry. And he began to teach me that when you wake up in the middle of the night, don't let your brain go to the worry. You just pray. And I would just start with my wife, and then I would go to my boys, and then I would go to the company, and I would pray until I fall back asleep again. And it's something that's kind of carried over to even today, as we've grown and the worries are different, or the concerns. I like to use the word concern, not worry. The concerns are different, but that same process is, you know what, God, this is yours. And, I can spend all night worrying about this, but you're the one that's in control. So, let me pray about it and trust you.
Man, thank you for saying that and sharing that and just being authentic, because that's the truth. I mean, and really we have the choice to fear or to have faith. And like you giving that testimony of just having to walk through that. So through all of that, like, where did you see God with you? I mean, was it, where was God in all that?
In everything, in who he would bring to the company as we grew. I mean, our CFO, we got to a point where we were too big. I was doing a lot of the generating new business as well as all the financial side of things, and we were getting to a point where I just couldn't keep up with it as far as the oversight. And so I just began praying, God, we need a full-blown CFO. The accountants were telling us we needed a full-blown CFO. And I was like, where do you start where all of those financials and all that oversight has been by family only? How do you even begin to go down that road? Well, I was serving on Grace House Ministries board of directors, and I actually served with Tammy Unext, who's our CFO here, and she, I remember literally began to specifically pray as we were doing it, and she didn't know about this, but I began to pray because she was on the board with me, and I said, God, if you can just send me someone like Tammy, that would be awesome, because she loves the Lord. She's got a heart for missions. I could trust her with everything. And so I just began praying about that. And so at one of our board planning meetings that we had one year, I guess it was about 3 years ago, I just said, you know what, we're taking prayer requests as a group. We're close knit group. I said, I'm looking for kind of a CFO type position, actually, I don't even think I said CFO because I didn't even know what it was going to look like. I need someone that can take off a lot of the accounting responsibilities from me. And if anybody would know anybody, that would be fantastic. And she had some names that she gave out. And then at the end of that meeting, she came up, she goes, hey, tell me a little bit more about what this position would entail.
I love that.
And I began to tell her what it was. And then she goes, okay. And then nothing happened. Well, on her way home, on her drive home, she texted, she goes, I think I may know someone. And I said, awesome. Can you please send that over to me? And I said, who is it? She goes, well, actually it's me. and I kid you not, there was no discussion about this at all. It was just the prayer of, Lord, if you can just send me. And he said, I can do better.
Yeah, I'll
just send her.
That's so
And
great.
it was one of those moments where you kind of you step back and you go, to him who's exceedingly capable of doing more than we could ever ask or imagine, right? That scripture, that was one of those moments. And that's just one of them. People that we've sent, jobs that we were supposed to have that we thought we were going to get and then didn't, and then we see how it turned into a train wreck.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, so many different moments, so many different pieces, people that, were sick and couldn't work anymore and not knowing how are we going to pick up the pieces,
Mm.
and then God bringing someone that was able to open up a whole new division for us or a whole new arm. I mean, just time after time after time.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, so bring us forward to today, and I'm still want to ask some more questions back, but where are you guys at today as a company? Employee size, kind
Okay.
of gross revenue size,
Yep.
if you don't
We
mind
we
sharing.
we are now last year we did about 67 million in gross revenues. So we've tripled in revenue size from about 2000, I guess really 2016, 17 was when we really started to grow and explode as we were coming out of that really tough season. Um, Employees, we've dipped back down a little bit and then jumped back up. We're right at 100 or so employees right now from the 30 or so that we had. So God's been good, and it's all Him. He gets all the glory. He really does. And just our team, we just have a team that has a heart to serve people, and we just kind of rewrote our vision statement, and that new vision statement is to leave a legacy beyond construction.
Yeah.
And that's really where our heart is. And we're not
Mm.
the fastest, we're not the best, we're not necessarily the cheapest. There's probably someone out there for sure that can do it faster, cheaper, and
Mm.
maybe even build a better building. I don't think so. We do a really good job, but um, our goal is that is God glorified in the process? Is the relationship when we walk away? Do they say, you know what, I just love those people, and if I ever built something else again, I would want to do it with them.
Beyond the construction, and I love that too. And and that kind of goes into something I want to talk about with you, just how, and I know you guys are obviously believers, followers of Jesus, a Christian, owned and led business. Um, what are some things that y'all have done?
Mhm.
How do you take that as a, a believer and a business owner, and and do kind of leak that through the culture of your organization? How do y'all lead with like those Christian values? How do you put God in the center of that? Just what are some things you've seen all over the years that really you've loved to do, that's been really just fruitful, God's blessed? Just kind of talk through some of that with me. I don't really know how to, ask the question exactly, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Sure. It's a great question. And it was one that we had to, it's kind of like that Joshua moment, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And it just, when we were going through all those struggles, it God just basically said, is this company mine or is it yours? And so we began to just not only talk about it with my with my brother-in-law, and then Jordan Jones, who's Randy's son, or I guess my cousin-in-law. We began to talk about it and say, look, either we're going to draw on the line in the stand and say, hey, you know, our family had always exuded those values, but it was never something that was just, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to weave this into our culture. We're going to weave this into who we are. And we just said, look, if we're going to draw a line in the sand, then we're going to step over it, and we're going to go all in. And so the first thing just began with kind of honoring God with our money, and looking for ways that we can um, tithe and give back, right? And just saying, God, if we're going to say you're first in our life, then we need to back it up with our money. And I'm not saying that, please hear me from a egotistical but just that was the first place, right? The second place is we began to get our leadership team together, and we go away for a leadership retreat every year, our project managers and above. And one year we said, look, we need to write our core values. What makes us who we are? And it was amazing to hear out of their mouth all of these things. I mean, the first thing out of their mouth was God. And we don't have a CEO here. When Randy passed away, we said, Jordan and Dustin and I said, we're going to we're going to be a bunch of C's, but we're not going to be the big C. And he's our CEO. That first thing that came out of their mouth was God. And so we wrote core values and tied those core values to scripture. Every single one of them is tied to a biblical scripture. And then we put it up on our wall. And weekly we send out those core values, and we emphasize the scripture related to those core values. We send them out to our team. We talk about them often. We do our end of year awards that we have are not based on whoever made the most money or whoever saved the most money, or it's all about who exudes those core values the best. And so I think it's just an intentionality. And then once you're in, you have to be all in, and you tell your team, look, we love you. And because we love you, we can't not talk about Jesus, because he's the epitome of love. He's the one who changed the world by his love. And for us to say that, we're believers and not talk to you about it, and to say we love you and not talk to you about it, it's just, do we really love you? Are you our family if we're not willing to talk about it? And so, yeah, anyway, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. I mean, and I'm just thinking, I wish I would have known some of this for us,
Yeah.
6 years ago, 7 years ago. But I'm assuming with 100 employees, I mean, not everybody's believers.
Nope.
So how has that impacted the non-believers? I mean, they have not, in the word in scripture, it talks about just like, it'll bless everybody, believers. And has that kind of same experience been with y'all's crew for, believers and unbelievers alike?
Without a doubt. I
Yeah.
will tell you another little small thing that we've done just to kind of give you an example of it. When COVID happened and we were all pulled out of the office, we started what was called a morning encouragement through Zoom. And mainly just to kind of for everybody to connect and get an update of what's going on. Well, it's morphed into a full-blown Bible study. We still do it every morning. We had more, I guess, early on. We have probably around 20 or so that get on now, 12 to 20, depending on the day. Where we're just like right now, we're going through the book of James, and and it's purely optional. Anybody that wants to be a part of it. But in that process, since we started this last March, we've had 2 that have given their life to the Lord and have been baptized since then. I've got another young man that is really, really close, really asking a lot of questions. And so what begins to happen is you are teaching these things, and you're talking about taming the tongue, like in James 3, and you're talking about not showing favoritism, like it says there. What you begin to see is that begins to emanate into the work environment, right? People begin to think about those things. They hold their tongue instead of lashing out. And then people begin to ask questions of, why are you doing that? Or why is that important? And then the door is open to your office and people are coming in and say, hey man, do you have 10 minutes? I really need you to pray for something. It just becomes, it's the light, right? Jesus is the light and he's the bread of life. And so as you begin offering that bread and begin shining that light, it begins to, it changes people's hearts. It just
Yeah.
does.
And I guess I think the fear where some business owners may be like, I'm going to be too offensive to the non-believers. Have you found that to be true in your business?
I have never had a single person tell me that it's offensive.
That they're mad about it, that you're doing that. Yeah.
No, not one. And I think people have asked me this question just because of the culture we're in. How do you do that without offending someone? I said, you've got to show them love in everything, right? If everything you do as a company is because you love them, right? Your benefits, your teaching, your training, your when they go through a hard time, do you step in and do you go see them in the hospital when their family's sick? Do you go to a funeral when someone in their family dies? Or if everything that you're doing exudes I love you, you're important to me. You are a part of our family. One of our core values is family. Our team is our family, and our family is our team. And, you know, if that is exuding, it's hard for someone to say that I don't want to hear what you have to say when they know
Yeah.
you fully love them.
Yeah,
Right?
love never fails. And man, that is a great point. I appreciate you pointing that out. It's like, it's not you're just doing that and then beating people up. This is just an extension of the love that you're having for your people that the Lord's put under your,
Yep.
under your, as your employees and under your authority, as far as work is concerned. So that's really well done.
Yeah. I just couldn't lay my head. We all could. It was just something that got all over us, is that, we get the best of people. We get 40 to, who knows, sometimes 80-hour weeks, right? Of the best of people. And if they're been charged to be good stewards, not only the money God's given us, but the resources and the time and talent, which is our people. They're our number one resource. And I'm going to have you with me 40 hours a day plus, and I'm not going to tell you about Jesus. Sorry, I don't know that I could stand in front of Jesus and him go, well, what did you do? Right? What'd you do with me? Right? And not be able to say that, well, God, I just wanted to keep that separate.
Yeah, that's so good. I know. And we had talked kind of with a mutual friend about maybe one day, hopefully doing some sort of like conference or summit or something, just, with the culture, with believers, with, just loving employees, building the culture based on that really well. So we might have to hold you to that. So
I'm all for it. And I've really been praying about it. It's something that I've really been praying about here lately is how to, just because I kind of feel unworthy to do it, is to bring in it by invitation only business leaders here in Parker County, and really be intentional about going through a, how to bring the gospel, how to bring the truth, how to lead your company, not only for the Lord, but to use it as a instrument for Him, right? And to not keep it separate. Here's my church and personal life, and then here's work. So still exploring where God's leading in that.
Well, hopefully we'll hear about some of that. I mean, and really because like that is a ministry. Like you're getting to impact more people and interact with more people than inside the walls of a church. I mean, it's just important. So I'm just grateful that you're stepping in that. So thank you.
Well, it's
I was just gonna
definitely
say,
something.
I think we've lost I think that's lost in churches today, is they've forgotten that most of the ministry, all that stuff is outside of the church walls. We should be mingling and interacting with everybody who doesn't know Jesus, as opposed to holy huddling. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but holy huddling with all of our buddies on a Sunday morning and then checking off the men's prayer breakfast on Saturday. And then that's the only time we ever do anything or talk about anything.
I 100% agree with that. I've had so many people, Micah, that have asked me, Adam, why didn't you go in the ministry? Your dad was a minister. Did you not feel called to ministry? And I tell people, I am in the ministry. I said, I'm not in full-time vocational ministry. I don't get paid to do it, but I can tell you right now, if you could sit in my office every day, the counseling, the love on people, the meeting needs when people are going through, I fully feel like this is a ministry, and not just with our team of 100, but with subcontractors and owners, and I mean, you name it. I mean, I don't know. I use this analogy a lot, and we're kind of gifted as a construction company. Paul was a tent maker, and he was able to get into places that a lot of other people weren't because of his skill. And I see that's who we are. Some jobs we do it better than others, but we're striving every day to make this expression of the giftings that God's given us for His glory. And construction is just a mechanism, right? It's just the vehicle with which we are able to love on people and make His name great. So,
and business owners who are listening, this counts. That counts when you're loving on people in business, and like that is ministry. That is loving people. That's serving the Lord. So that counts. So you can count that. I just need to say that.
I believe it does. And I think so often we sell what the influence we have as business leaders and business owners, we sell it short. You have a huge ability to influence and to love on people. There's a respect that's automatically given to, a business owner or a manager or a leader. If you're not an owner, I mean, you still can be influential in your team by how you love them, and most of all, by how you serve them. One of our other core values is service before self. And in everything, Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. And so we that culture, it just speaks to people, and the more you serve them, the more they're like, I want to be around this person. I just think a lot of times we don't always realize the influence we have on the people around us, either for the positive or the negative.
And there's so much in here, Adam. Thank you. Well, let me ask a few more, and then we'll need to wind our time up, or we just keep going. But this is kind of a hard question. Would if I ask you, like, hey, what is kind of your life message? And just think of some stuff that just kind of jumps to the top of your head. And it didn't have to be summarized perfectly or anything, but just what are some things that I would say, man, what is your life message?
He's called us to give our life away. There's not a day that it goes by that I go, God, it's not mine. And so everything that I get involved in, we can go with the perspective is, how is this serving me, or how is this helping me, instead of the perspective of how is what God given me helping others, right? And the downtimes in my life when I feel like I'm empty and broken is generally when I've let that perspective get out of whack and it's become about me, right? How I need this, or I want to be able to do this, or I'm tired of serving here and I deserve a break, and I know we all need those things. Please hear me. But Jesus said that if we want to find life, we must first lose it, right? And the more I begin to lose my life, my identity as Adam, and more of, God, here's who I am in you, and here's the gifts you've given me, help me to use it for you. So I don't know if that's really a life. It's just losing your life in it for him. He's worth losing it for. And the more I find it, the more I find purpose, meaning, strength, endurance, hope.
Yeah, just the joy that goes with that.
Joy, exactly right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, give some encouragement. I want to give a little bit of encouragement to people. Like, if you just had to say, Adam, encourage somebody right now, just based on your experiences. I mean, your life, you've been through, how would you encourage somebody? In any way?
No matter where you are right now in life, God knew you were going to be there. His word says that all of our days were ordained before. And I think a lot of times people get to a situation in life. It's easy to be in this world and look at it from a hopeless perspective. What I usually tell people, it hasn't surprised God. He knew we were all going to be here, wondering about this Delta variant, and then wondering about, who's coming across the border, wondering how in the world a nation could leave thousands of people over in a foreign nation, the way it's happening in Afghanistan. It's easy to look at all that and go, is it hopeless? It has not surprised God. And where you are in the situations that you are in, he is not surprised by it. In fact, there's a reason for it, because if he ordained it, right, it says we are his workmanship, or the actual Greek is we are our poem. We are a poem, his poem that he has specifically written for us. And it says he's prepared in advance the good works for us to do. So everything good and bad that is in our life, or what we may perceive as good and bad, God knew it. And if he knew it, he has a plan for it. And if that plan, we can either make it about us, or we can make that plan in our situation about him. And so I think the hardest thing to do and learn is to realize that no matter where we are, no matter what's going around, we can either look at it with a physical, worldly perspective, or we can look at it with an eternal perspective. And it's the only thing that keeps me going sometimes. This is probably the craziest construction climate ever. Our president of construction, Randy Summerall, came to me and said, Adam, I've been in construction 42 years, I've never seen it like this. And it'd be real easy to get scared about that. Well, what's going to happen? I got projects sitting for an entire month before materials show up. God, you got a plan. What do you want? What do you want us to learn in this? And so often I think we look at things, we ask the question, why? Why, God? And what he's wanting us to learn is what? Ask the questions, what and how? What, God, are you wanting to teach me in this? What, God, do you want me to see in this? How, God, do you want me to grow? How can I become more like you in this process? And he's not scared. He's not out of control. He's sovereign in all things. And he's got a plan, just like in Jeremiah. Know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. So I think that's the big thing right now. It's easy to look at the world and lose hope, but where's your hope? Is it in the world or is it in him?
Oh, that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And that's why we wanted to really create this even podcast, to give people that hope. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that will just take your eye off the ball, and we have hope. So, okay, how does somebody connect with JRJ? If they want to find more information about you or about the firm, what's just the best place to go?
Best place to go is probably to, either reach out through, obviously through the website. We've got ability to connect there. Reach out through any of our social media, Facebook and Twitter, if you've got any information that's needed. Obviously, anybody can find somebody that, get a hold of me. I'd be happy to sit and meet.
Yeah. And I'll encourage people to do that too. If there's somebody who's just some further follow-up questions, or even just about the hope we're talking about, call us, call you, reach out through the website. What's the website, Adam?
It's www.JRJinc.com.
That's great. And tell me, just kind of our final few minutes, where are you guys building? What are you doing right now? And I really meant to ask that earlier, so sorry about that. But tell me a little bit about where y'all doing, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, we're actually in about, 7 or 8 different states right now. We've got projects going in upstate New York, in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, Memphis, Lake Charles. But we do federal aviation projects all over the nation. We do mainly navigational aids, getting them the planes on the ground is what we do there along the runways, all the fun looking technology that's there. We do Walmarts. We've got this year we've been blessed. We'll do close to 30 Walmart remodels, full remodels this year. Most of them for the first time. We were in Louisiana and Mississippi last year with a portion in Texas. This year, all of them are in Texas, which has been wonderful. It's a lot easier to get there. Locally, just finished, Jerry's new Cadillac building there in Hudson Oaks, finishing up the lovely, building falling down in the downtown square. If you drove by there, it's been a long, arduous historical project. Doing a dental office here. We've a new county office, new annex building out in Aledo, building TCA, Trinity Christian Academy's new stadium and athletic complex out there. We've got multifamily projects going all over the Metroplex right now, mostly retrofits. But and a lot in the pipeline. So very, very blessed.
How great. Gosh, how great. Y'all have done everything. Well, thank you so much for making time. Thank you for being faithful like you are, and being humble and authentic, and not letting your position, dictate stuff. You're just super humble, super authentic, and super grateful. Just thank you. So, man, bless your company, bless you guys, and just thanks for making time.
Thank you for your words, and thank you for the opportunity. Anybody that would like to chat more on any of this, I'm definitely an open book. I love to invest and pour into people. So
Awesome.
appreciate the opportunity to share my heart, really do. And thanks for doing this, and thanks for y'all's ministry. What an incredible gift this is to many. I will definitely continue to listen.
Thanks, Adam. We're grateful.
Hey, this is Micah. Me and Josh would like to thank you for joining us in the Story Field today. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion, and to learn more about us and the Story Field, visit thestoryfield.com. This podcast is sponsored by the Allen Firm, legal guides for many of life's situations. To learn more about the Allen Firm, visit allenlawfirm.com. Have a blessed day, week, and year, and we will see you next time on the Story Field.
This is Josh again. I just wanted to thank you for listening and let you know that this podcast is really about hope and about giving you hope for your life. So if you're listening and you're in a place where you're really feeling hopeless right now, or if you do not know Jesus, we have some great news to share with you and would love a chance to pray for you. Email us at hope@allenlawfirm.com. That's hope@allenlawfirm.com, and we'll reach out to you soon. Thank you for listening. God bless you.